Hello and welcome to another edition of Florida Sportsman Action Spotter Podcast. Here's what we're going to do this week. We're going to make a trip around Florida, check out all the East Coast, all the West Coast, through Islamorada, out the Panhandle, and find out what's going on with the fishing. I've also got a question for the boys. Our water's gotten warmer in the last 20 years. That's kind of irrefutable. But what is interesting is what kind of changes has it brought to each specific area? I know in my world, offshore Northeast Florida, our dolphin and wahoo come through much faster than they used to. They stay here a couple of 2-3 weeks and they're off for up the East Coast to cooler waters. But our tarpon, they used to stay only 3 months. Now they stay 8 months. We got a lot more mutton snapper than we used to. We got a lot more mangrove snapper than we used to. We'll check with David Voorhees, also up in Northeast Florida, and see how the inshore water has changed. I'll bet all the guys around the state have got ideas on that. And tonight, the East Coast of Florida is going to be brought to you by Yamaha. Reliability starts here. By Tournament Master Chum. Oh, it's the best chum on earth, all right. By D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. And by the Castaway Hat Co, the hat that's helping save our seas. Let's get started by hitting Northeast Florida and checking in with one Captain David Voorhees. Okay, let's get tonight's festivities rolling with a quick trip up to the Northeast Florida corner and check in with one David Voorhees. David, how are you?
Hey, Ricky, I'm doing fine, buddy, doing fine.
Getting a little hot up here, buddy.
Yeah, it has been getting warm, but you know what? It's going to get a lot hotter. This is
yeah.
nothing.
You don't have to remind me of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
right.
it's going to get a lot hotter. But, you know, we fished today and had a pretty good day today. It's been a tough week and just had a hard time putting my finger on, you know, why is everybody struggling? Why are we having these tough times? So it's, you know, it's been hard. So I went back to doing my deep water jigging because we've been doing really good up on the mud flat. So today I went back to my deep water stuff, and lo and behold, we ended up with a really good day. Now, you know, I just don't know if the water, it has something to do with water temperature or if it's that warm, but you know, I mean, I've seen the water temperature up here get really, really warm. I mean, I've actually seen it, you know, get up in the high 80s. I mean, it can get pretty darn warm, you know, and it not really affect the fish. So I'm just not quite sure why these fish are sort of down in deep water now and not really up on the mud flats like they were last week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But who knows? I can't imagine that it's gotten that hot that fast that it's run them off the mud, but we have had some pretty strong winds, so that may have something to do with it too. But it was good today. You say on reds, did you get anything else besides reds on the deep water jig?
We did. You know, it's been a very, very unique mangrove snapper season. Some of the biggest mangrove snappers we have ever seen. The flounder had been pretty good. We're seeing good numbers of flounder, Rick, but just not quite the size. I think the bigger flounder are going to be up more in the river. The closer you get to the inlet, I think you're going to find bigger flounder. As you move away north and south of the river along the intercoastal, I think it's going to be, you know, you're going to see a lot of flounder and a lot of smaller flounder. St. Augustine reports some really good flounder fishing down there. And everybody's saying this is like, you know, one of the best years we've seen in a while. And I agree, but it is still nothing compared to what flounder fishing used to be in Northeast Florida, say, you know, 20 something years ago. And I think Northeast Florida the flounder fishing here was just epic. It was unbelievable. Probably, I would say some of the best anywhere in the U.S. was right here in Northeast Florida, and that's no longer the case. But we are seeing a better flounder bite. We're seeing quite a few more flounder, I'll take these little ones, thinking, hey, maybe next year they're going to get bigger. Trout, what I'm hearing from the guys, it's just, I don't know. It's another sad case. The trout are we're not seeing any of what we used to see as far as trout fishing goes. I hate to sound of doom and gloom, but it's just the trout fishery is just it's just been really a wreck these last few years, and I would love to see that get better, but we're not seeing nearly the numbers of trout we used to see.
Well, David, I've got to ask you, because it's our topic for tonight. We've been around a long time, and we've seen a ton of changes. And,
yes, we have.
And there's no doubt that in the last 20 years, now we can argue all day about whose fault it is or what's causing it or whatever, but our water's getting warmer. Pretty much irrefutable. It's getting higher, it's getting warmer. What are the biggest changes offshore? Because inshore that you've seen, because offshore, our dolphin and wahoo and tuna don't stay as long as they used to. We're catching a whole lot more mangrove snapper and mutton snapper, particularly, than we used to. And our tarpon used to be here, David, 3 months a year. Now they're here 8 months a year. What are you seeing different inshore?
Well, it's really funny you say that, Rick, because this year we have probably reported more snook fishing up here than I've ever remember hearing guys catching snook. And you're hearing reports of guys catching nice, 32, 33-inch snook, which, I've caught a bunch of snook up here, but I can't tell you there's only been a handful in the 30-inch range that I've caught. Most of them are what we call little bitty dinky snook, little 20-some inchers. But, this year, man, you're hearing reports of guys catching a lot of big snook.
And David, what's been very encouraging to me is the number of places we've seen them. We've seen them downtown. Yes. We've seen them in the surf. Okay. We've seen them in the intercoastal. We've seen them in a lot of places we never used to. Never.
And it's amazing, and we, in Northeast Florida, we've always had snook. I've talked to guys that grew up here, go back a long ways, and they can remember always, but they were always killed off about every 6 or 7 years. We'd have a good hard freeze, and you'd see dead snook floating everywhere. Man, I don't think we're going to see that anymore. I really don't, Rick.
Don't say that.
Yeah, that's
we didn't
true.
See this coming, so we don't know about that. But I think you're right.
True.
I think snook has been the biggest change inshore. And you've told me several times before, because you're such a naturalist, about the mangrove trees. And how we're seeing them further north than we used to.
Yeah, they're almost to your house, Ricky.
Wow.
Yes, they're almost to the St. Johns River, very close to the St. Johns River, and where normally we would the first ones didn't start showing up till south of Pine Island. Now, anybody who knows this area, the distance between Pine Island and Atlantic Boulevard, that's quite a distance, wouldn't you say, Rick?
I sure would, David. I sure would. Thank you so much for a great report, and I agree with you 100% on the changes that we've seen. And please tell me we can talk with you next week.
Hey, Ricky, I'll be here, buddy.
Okay, thank you, David. Captain David Voorhees. Our thanks to David Voorhees for a great Northeast Florida report. Now, time for my favorite little fishing village, Stuart, Florida, and one Captain John Earhart. John, the boat's out of the water. I'm throwing a coat of wax on her. Got all the live bait rigs made. I'll be down there Thursday. Tell me about fishing in Stuart, Florida.
Well, the offshore fishing's been pretty good. It seems like the sailfish bite's starting to pick up a little bit.
They heard I was coming. Yep, I knew that. Yep.
You're at 90 to 160 feet of water right now, fishing live greenies or goggle eyes. That's been your ticket to success. You guys have been drifting or slow trolling with mylar dredges and kite fishing when there's enough wind to do that. But typically, as you know, in May and June, it's slick, calm, perfect conditions to get out there quickly, and you can see the sailfish from a mile off when they're free jumping. So it's just a perfect recipe if you want to target sailfish quickly, effectively, and you don't have to go very far. There's been a lot of kingfish mixed in, so I definitely have been running some tracer wire, to catch some kingfish if I want to have something for the smoker. And we are occasionally catching a nice sized wahoo. They're not giant wahoos, but they're 30 to 50 pounders.
That's good.
And I certainly don't mind putting those in the fish box.
No, not at all. And let me tell you something about weather, John Earhart. It never gets calm enough to scare me. I mean, I'm tough. The calmer it gets, the better I like it. But slick calm in 76 is just fine with me.
Yeah, that makes two of us.
How about your inshore?
The inshore's been pretty good. We're catching a lot of keeper snook. Season's getting ready to close here, so definitely trying to catch as many slot-sized fish as I can, and get ready for that summer snook spawn where we're going to see larger than average snook breeding around the St. Lucie Inlet. There's been quite a few tarpon and jacks around too, so definitely have some larger size spinning reels if you want to battle some of those beastly Jack Crevalles or some of those 70 to 100 pound tarpon that typically show up the last part of May and all through June and July. So we got a lot of good river fishing going on right now. Plenty of bait fish, so it's been pretty good all around.
John, I got to ask you a question. You've been fishing out of there a long time, and you're an old vet like me. Our water's gotten warmer in the last 20 years. There's little doubt of that. I think that's pretty evident. What changes have you seen in the fishery with the warmer water?
With the warmer water, the beneficial side I've seen is now, there's times when I can go out and target bonefish on the flat.
Wow.
And that's been kind of a new thing. And the other thing I've noticed since we've had warmer on average waters, I haven't been seeing the pompano come in the river as frequently. Because they'll stay along the beach and you can catch them year round on the beach, but we don't seem to get the pompano coming into the river as frequently like I've seen in previous years when we had the colder water temperatures.
I'll be darned. That's crazy. I almost feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I almost feel like your wintertime sail fishing may not be as predictable as it used to be. They're not there all winter like they used to be, and it seems like the summertime's gotten even better.
Yeah, it seems to me, I definitely agree with you 100% on that. I think you have a much narrower window of opportunity in the wintertime because they're migrating in a shorter span of time, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And in the summertime, I feel like they're coming here to spawn, and they're pretty predictable. There's just certain areas, right out front of the St. Lucie Inlet where you can go there every summer and you're going to catch them because you're going to see them.
Hush. I'm going to start fishing there Thursday. Hush, don't bring all those boats in. I'm kidding. I think you're absolutely right, and I think that's the biggest changes that you guys have seen. John, I'll see you on Thursday. Thank you so much for a great report, and I hope we'll be talking again soon. Tell me we can check in with you again next week.
Yes, sir. I'll check in with you next week, and I'll see you fishing on Thursday.
Thank you so much. Captain John Earhart from Stuart, Florida. Mighty glad to have him on the staff. And as it always is, today's a great time to welcome a brand new sponsor, and we're so thankful to have the great folks at Academy Sports and Outdoors as our newest podcast sponsor. Hey, let me tell you something. Today's new outdoorsmen have so many advantages over us old-timers. I can only imagine how much easier it would have been to learn to fish and hunt if we had had Academy Sports. Well, get ready, Panama City, because your outdoor experience is about to get a whole lot better because Academy Sports and Outdoors is on the way. They'll assemble your grill and your bikes. They'll bore sight your gun. Heck, they'll spool your line. They'll exchange your propane, and they'll do it all at Academy's best price guarantee. The store is coming in late July, but until then, you can still shop online at academy.com or through Academy's mobile app. That's where you can sign up for all the digital ads and offers you need to enhance your outdoor experience. Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. Now, time to head to Kokomo. I wish I was sitting under a tiki hut right now drinking a cold Diet Coke with one Brandon Storing. Cap, how we doing?
I'm great, Rick. How you been?
I've been excellent. Tell me what's going on with your fishing.
We're getting a little bit of a better tarpon bite now. It's been a slow season for tarpon, but seems like now that wind died down, that they got happier. Also been catching a lot of really big snooks, which is really nice to see. I think they're getting ready to go out and spawn. But speaking of spawning, we've also been catching a lot of really nice triple tails in the backcountry. Oh yeah, and as well as some sea trout and out on the reef. Seems like that the mangrove snappers are making their way out there. Also, there's been a lot of good deep water muttons being caught. Seeing some more dolphins show up. A couple blackfin tunas around, and that pretty much wraps it up for Islamorada.
Hey, I got a question for you. You've been going to Islamorada since you were a boy. I know that much, and been fishing professionally out of there for a while now. Our water's getting warmer, Brandon. I don't think there's a lot of debate in that. You can debate the reason why, but there's no question it's getting warmer. What changes have you seen in this warmer water? How has your fishery changed over the years?
So I'm glad you asked that, because this year we've had a tremendous amount of sargassum that showed up early because of the warm waters. We've had a ton of sargassum weed show up like in early March, and that sargassum eventually goes and washes ashore and washes into the Florida Bay, where then it dies and it falls into the bottom and decomposes, and it turns into an algae bloom, which we usually see, around August, right?
Right.
Well, we're having that big algae bloom earlier this month. Okay. And the algae bloom was so widespread, and it's like, wow, we're saying it's, in early May. We're like, I can't believe that the algae bloom has covered this much of Florida Bay. I mean, is it going to be around till August? And what's going to happen? So it really pushed a lot of fish out of the areas where we normally fish in Florida Bay. I've been doing most of my fishing around the bridges or, closer to the ocean water where we have cleaner water, or skipping all of Florida Bay and going, fishing, past Flamingo and the Cape and whatnot. So that's one thing that you can say you've noticed from just this year alone, is that the warmer waters, it's like summer came earlier, of course, and we've had earlier season of sargassum showing up, and that's what's affected us, is that the sargassum has came in by a huge amount early, died, went onto the bottom, decomposed, and created a huge algae bloom in Florida Bay down here.
Interesting. Okay, so that's going to make a change in your fishing. There's no doubt. All right, buddy. Well, look, we really appreciate your report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir, always.
All right, we sure will. Captain Bean Storen out of Bud and Mary's in Islamorada. And that wraps up our East Coast swing, so it's time to head up west. Now, the West Coast swing of the Florida Sportsman Action Spotter tonight is brought to you by Shimano, bringing people and nature together. By Nosara Paradise Rentals. Oh, that's your dream vacation, I promise you, if you're a billfish fisherman. By Young Boats, the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids. And by Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day.
You know what Yamaha Outboards love? The genuine formula and consistency of Yamalu marine engine oils.
What?
Outboards are subjected to punishing conditions like high loads, salt, and humidity, a mix that automotive oils can't handle. Yamalu full synthetic and marine performance formulas are certified to protect against friction and corrosion for reliable performance every time. Find Yamalu marine oils at your nearest Yamaha Outboard dealer. Locate them at yamahaoutboards.com/dealers. Yamaha. Reliability starts here.
Hey, Raj, being consistent is a mark of a quality product. If you've been Florida's #1 chum for over 10 years, there's got to be a reason.
For 10 years, Tournament Master Chum has lived up to its name. That's why more tournament pros insist on Tournament Master than any other chum. It's the only chum with Menhaden milk mixed right in. That means it gets the scent out faster and deeper than any other brand of chum. It comes in a grind size for every species, from kingfish to catching bait. Your fishing time is way too precious to you second-rate chum. Bring the action to you by insisting on Tournament Master Chum. It's worth every penny.
When you're ready for the finest in custom-made flat spay or inshore-offshore hybrids, you are ready to meet the Young family in Inglis, Florida. For over 21 years, the Young family has built custom boats one at a time for every type of fishing. Nothing can sneak up on a flat quite like the Gulf Shore flats boats, and I've never fished a better hybrid than the Young 24s and 27s. Rob Young is a naval architect who takes tremendous pride in each and every build for each and every customer that wants their boat custom built exactly the way they want it. Is it time for you to move up? Are you ready to own the finest boat built? Then you need to visit the Young Boat facility in Inglis, Florida, or check them out online at youngboats.com. Ha! We made it through 10,000 Islands and found him hiding in the mangroves, Captain Steve Dahl. Steve, how are you?
I'm doing good, Rick. How you been?
Good. You can't hide from us, buddy. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Good. I mean, it's definitely, we're starting to see, our weather is definitely a lot warmer than what we've been, experienced in years past. And it seems like it's kind of creeping up every year now. But, so we're a couple months, different than what we ultimately should be. So I'd like to think we're in like a full summer pattern right now, of fish. I mean, the snook are pretty much gone. They're kind of moved offshore. Those usually last, into June, if not the latter part of June. Those fish that have typically been on the beaches in, May and June, those fish were here in April and May. And, so there's some big snook offshore, right on the wrecks and reefs. They're a little finicky, obviously, with the warmer water, but, there's quite a bit of, bottom fishing still to be had on those nearshore wrecks and reefs. And, we're seeing quite a bit of, decent snapper. All three, snappers are kind of in play. Some bigger keeper, lane snappers, mangrove snappers, and then, the yellowtails are starting, to get a little bit bigger too, which we've talked about in, weeks past about how that's kind of a new fishery for us a little bit. And then, the cobia are still doing good. So I'm not complaining about the cobia. And the weird part is we're catching a lot of them bottom fishing, which is just, kind of fun because we're using lighter tackle for the, the snappers, and then boom, all of a sudden you got a cobia towing you around. So be on the alert if you're bottom fishing, you might pick up some cobia right off the bottom.
Well, ain't nothing wrong with that. And that was our question of the week this week. As long as you've been down there, you've seen our water temperatures warm, and you've seen the changes. What have been the biggest changes you've seen over the last 15 years or so?
I would definitely say the snapper. I think there's got to be something related to the yellowtail snapper kind of coming to our area. That would always be like a very small, tiny bycatch. And there's a sustainable population of those fish out there that are borderline on the keeper side right now.
So that's my a plus, right?
Oh, it is a plus. And so that's, looking at the glass half full, the glass half empty, to me, has got to be the triple tail bite. And that's, arguably one of the top things that I used to do. And then the last 2 years, that bite has just not been there. Those sheer numbers of fish are just not there. Last year, it was significantly warmer than it had been the year before. And this year, we're experiencing the same. We had experienced the same thing. And when I say that, I'm talking more of the cooler water months and, maybe October through, say May. And we're just not seeing them. This year we saw maybe a little bit better, influx of population with some smaller fish, but they're far from harvestable size. And it's almost to the point where something that I did for a good 5-6 months of the year, targeting those fish exclusively, I've kind of written that out of my game plan. And I'm not sure what next year ultimately holds for that, but to me, I really believe the rise in water temperatures will affect.
But Cap, I got to throw in a caveat here on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
And here's my thoughts. I certainly understand your logic, but I can tell you up in my neck of the woods and over on the West Coast from my neck of the woods, up north of you substantially, there are 10 times as many people that have learned about triple tail and are fishing triple tail than there were just a few years ago. Doesn't that have to come into play?
No, it 100% does. And we've done a really good job of educating people on how to do that. it's fairly easy if, you really think about it. So, I mean, it's something that a lot of people can do. You don't need the biggest boat in the world, so maybe, and we've talked about this in the past too, Rick, you and I, about, maybe we need to adjust our, harvest size on these fish and put maybe even a little slot in there. Cause I really do believe a lot of these fish are hitting the fillet table. So, we might be, as with most things, maybe it's a year class, we're missing a few year classes here, with the fishing pressure that those fish are getting. They're just not spawning, we just don't have those big females out there anymore, or at least as many. So we'll see how it goes, but I would like to combine it with, I've always done well in the winter months with that stuff. That's kind of a tried and true for me. And as warm as it's been, I'd like to point my finger to that. But you're absolutely correct. The fishing pressure absolutely has an impact on it as well.
Yep, we just need a winter to come along every now and then.
Yeah.
All right, Cap, we appreciate it ever so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Can't wait.
Okay, thank you. Captain Steve Dahl from 10,000 Islands. Now, we're going to move up to West Central, but before we go, let's get a word from D.O.A. I recently had a chance to stop by D.O.A. World Headquarters in Stuart, Florida, and I was not the least bit surprised to see company founder Mark Nichols hard at work on a new fish catching invention. What was shocking to me was that he was working on the original D.O.A. shrimp, the same shrimp he patented in 1985, the stealthiest bait ever made, the only bait that lands so subtly that spooky fish will never hear it, was getting Mark's full attention. What in the world are you doing, was the obvious question. Mark looked at me sideways. Listen, son, I've never stopped working on the shrimp. It's got to catch more fish every year, so I've got to make each one better than the last. That's why I've now got all the production in-house. That means that today's 3 and 4 inch shrimp are consistently the best we've ever built. You know what? I get it now. The D.O.A. shrimp that fooled 1 million fish in 1985 has had to keep up with the times to keep making your fishing better. More than ever, fish are getting spooky, and that means the 2022 version of the D.O.A. shrimp is the stealthiest, most lifelike, and deadliest bait you can throw. Our thanks to Steve Dahl for a great 10,000 Islands report. Now we're going to swing up to West Central and check in with Captain Ray Markham. Raymond, how are you?
Howdy, howdy.
What's
Happy
going on,
Memorial
son?
Day weekend.
Happy Memorial Day to you.
I am off the water this weekend. I won't get near the water.
Good for you. Yep.
The only thing I could possibly say, I could go down by a boat ramp just for grins and hang out.
Yep. You don't think there's any rookies at the boat ramp this week, do you?
Oh, heavens no. Oh, man. Well, I'll tell you, fishing around the clock's been pretty doggone good. Guys that have been getting out well offshore, pushing out to 150 to 200 feet, they're getting wahoo, they're getting tuna, they're getting a few dolphins, and sailfish. I've actually heard a couple swordfish stories too. So,
cool.
Little bit of everything going on out there. Not a lot of kingfish, apparently. I think they've just pretty much pushed further north. Inshore or near shore, we're still getting some Spanish mackerel, some bluefish. Guys that are doing some bottom fishing in 40 to 60 feet of water. A few hogfish, not a lot of hogfish, but the mangrove snapper bite's been excellent. Inshore, offshore, near shore. So the guys, like I said earlier, that were fishing the deep water, they're getting some big mangoes, up to about 10 pounds. The inshore stuff, we're catching mangrove snapper anywhere from a pound to about 3 pounds. And it seems like the best bait going has just been shrimp. I don't care if it's live shrimp or I'm throwing D.O.A. shrimp. Doing real well with that. Same thing goes for snook, redfish, and trout. Guys that are fishing live shrimp seem to be doing about the best. I've been imitating those guys and throwing my D.O.A. shrimp and doing just about as well as anybody else. So it's not been a bad week at all.
Cool. Cool. Hey, Ray, I got to ask you a question.
Sure.
You've been at this game as long as I have. And there's no doubt our water's getting warmer. Our ocean's getting higher, the water's getting warmer. We can argue all day about what causes it, but it's still the way it is. What changes have you seen in the last 15, 20 years that you attribute to warm water?
Well, actually, I don't know if I can say it's 15 or 20 years, but what I really think is probably about the last 4 years or so, it's been a marked difference in when fish are supposed to be here. Tarpon, I started seeing tarpon in February, whereas normally I wouldn't start seeing them until March. And everything else seems to be earlier and earlier. Kingfish migration. Shoot, we were starting to see kingfish showing up the end of January, beginning of February, where normally it's February, March, and then into April. But the one thing I'm not really looking forward to is the heat. We're already looking at 90 plus degree temperature days on the water, and that's way earlier than it should be. But like you say, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I've talked about Northeast Florida quite a bit. We've got more mutton snapper and more mangrove snapper than we ever used to have. But we've got in our tarpon that used to stay 3 months now stay 8, and
wow.
And our snook have quadrupled at least in the last several years. But
well, with regard to snook, and I will say this, I believe that a lot of the snook that we had here probably started migrating further north. And I think, honestly, the red tide of the past few years probably pushed some fish north. And so I'd be willing to bet you if you talk to Captain William Toney up there just north of us here, he'll probably tell you they've had more snook than they've ever had. And I just think I have fewer snook here than we had in the past. But I think it's partially due to thinning out of the crowd with the red tide, plus the fact that it moved fish. So, that's kind of what I'm seeing with everything: snook, trout, redfish. I don't know, maybe not so much redfish, but at least the trout and the snook. I just think there's probably fewer numbers here, but from all the reports I'm hearing and seeing, the north end of Pinellas and Pasco County now are just, they're jamming with fish. So
that's a good thing. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I guess.
I believe it is. All right, Ray, thank you so much. That's an outstanding report. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
Yes, sir. The good Lord willing and the creek don't rise. We'll be here.
Rise. Talk to you next week. All right, thanks to Ray Markham for a great West Central report. Now, before we get out of here, how about we get a word from the Castaway Hat Company? I'll bet you don't even remember the days us cool kids would rub baby oil mixed with iodine to help us get even darker in the summertime. Being burnt was cool, and even if you weren't a surfing legend, you sure looked the part. Oh, if a bunch of us paid the price for our vanity. We never knew the skin problems and health damage that awaited us. Today's fishermen have the option of being so much healthier in the sun than we ever thought of, thanks in no small part to the Castaway Hat Company, who not only provide our podcasters with Castaway straw hats, but they make the coolest prints on the underside of the brims you ever saw. Now, you may think your bimini top or T-top blocks the sun, but as an awful lot of us OGs can tell you, we can't have enough protection from sun damage. Do what we do. Put on the sunblock, then put on your Castaway straw hat. You'll look the part of today's best anglers, and you'll even be helping the environment. That's because for each Castaway hat sold, the Castaway Company will pay to have 1 pound of trash removed from our waterways. The burning Florida sun won't be roasting your skin, and believe me, when you age a few years, you'll thank us old guys that have spent a lifetime on the water. So go to CastawayHatCo.com and get your best sun protection today. Castaway Hat Company, a hat for every adventure. Our thanks to grumpy old Ray Markham for a great report from West Central. Now let's head for a ray of sunshine. Captain William Toney, the mayor of Homosassa. How are you, my boy?
Doing good, bud. Right down here in downtown Homosassa. It's been a long Labor Day week, or I should say Memorial Weekend. It's one of them 3 days, but the good one is that, all the troops and all the men and women that went before us so that we could have this freedom and that holiday off. That's what we're enjoying here.
My mom, my dad, my older brother, my nephew, they all saw combat. Okay.
Wow.
So I could stay home and be a fisherman. I owe somebody something, Cap. Hey, no doubt about that.
You know the scene in Forrest Gump where everybody, my family fell before me in war. This sounded just like that scene, bud. But
I tell you what, it's a reality. It's how it is. It's
yes,
my dad was on the assault in Berlin while my mom was a field nurse chasing Rommel across the desert in Italy. It was real life back then. But let's talk fishing. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Well, we're in a transition. We're getting, we're finally getting some summertime conditions, real hot water out there. We're talking 86 degrees. Now we've got a good push of tarpon coming up from the south. Most of the guys who are targeting them are fly fishing for them, which Homosassa is a well-known fishery for world record fish. There's actually been a couple books written about it. But if you get down there, etiquette's the big thing. It's south of Homosassa River, Chesapeake Bay, trolling motors and poling. It's a team sport, so you got to put that fly right in front of their mouth. You can also target them with blue crabs and other things like that, but priority down there goes to the fly fishermen.
Okay, I got you. What's going on besides tarpon?
Well, our trout have moved out a little bit deeper and got a little bit more harder to work for, just that hot water. So I suggest if you're trying to get a mess of trout, head out there past marker number 2 out of Homosassa. And like one of my mentors, Captain Marvin Williams, told me, he says, get out there so that marker 2 looks like a matchstick on the horizon. And when you get that far, start fishing.
Uh-huh. Okay.
And dark colored jigs are eating shrimp out there. So any of your shrimp colors like motor oil, new penny, bourbon, and any of those dark colors with the red jig head, and it's about anywhere from 8 to about 14 feet of water. Look for the deep grass. Broken bottom's okay out there, but you want that real dark-looking thick grass. That's where you're going to find your trout, and there's a mixture of nice sea bass out there with them. So when you get done with that, on the incoming tide, back inshore, the red fishing's been pretty good, but also catching some nice trout and everything back around on the inside. And don't forget to look at those crab buoys because there's been a good push of triple tail also.
Oh, good. Because, boy, I tell you, a lot of places, Northeast Florida included, had very disappointing triple tail seasons this year.
Well, we got plenty of triple tail, and the thing is, finding 118 is the hard thing, but catching one's not a problem. And just to throw out, too, on the conservation side, we got coming up here, I believe it is the Tuesday this week at the Crystal River Civic Center, or their Chamber of Commerce Center, is a redfish meeting about raising our rules here to 2 fish an angler or 4 per vessel. Our Homosassa Guides Association would like to see it stay at 1 fish per person between 18 and 27 and no captain's take. So if you're passionate about it, be at that meeting.
Gotcha. Outstanding. Hey, William, let me ask you a quick question. We've seen a lot of changes in the last 20 years or so brought on by a warming water condition. I think we can all agree it's warmer than it used to be. What changes in your fishery have you seen?
It would be easy to say snook. We've always had them here, about Citrus County was the line up to, Crystal River, and they've always been in the springs. But our Big Bend anglers all the way up to Steenahatchee and even Cedar Key has a good push of snook. And, the warmer weather has allowed those fish to thrive and go up further up into the Big Bend. So, I would say snook is a species that has benefited from, the warmer water, sea level rise, or whatever we want to call it. But I've seen more snook in the last 7 years here in Citrus County than I ever have, and reports from our captains up and down the Big Bend catching them in places I never thought would happen, like up in Steenahatchee. So I would say snook. That would be our biggest thing.
Exactly. In Northeast Florida, the biggest 2 changes have been snook, number 1. And number 2, our tarpon used to stay 3 months. Now they stay 8. So
wow.
It's a lot different. As always, William, we appreciate the heck out of your reports. Thanks so much. Please tell me we can check with you next week.
I'll be right down here in downtown Homosassa.
How's that scallop pile coming?
so far, I have not heard anything yet about scallops. So usually around starting here beginning in June, FWC will put out a report, and they have their biologists go in and they do grid searches, and they kind of give you a gauge on how good it was compared to last year. So I've actually seen a couple out there when I'm drifting around on the flats fishing. So to get in the water yet, have not done it. So I cannot say an accurate report yet, but hopefully by this coming next week.
Okay, all right. The FWC does understand you're the mayor, right?
Right.
Okay,
yep.
Okay.
And
so I want some inside info. Okay.
Right. They put me a personal stash out there.
I'm ready for that. Thank you, Captain William. We appreciate it as always.
All right, bud.
Let's get a word from Shimano. Hey, I'm not sure who first coined the phrase, the only thing saltwater can't destroy is saltwater. But you know what that meant to the engineers at Shimano? That sounded like a challenge. And their response is now on the shelves of Strike Zone Fishing. The new spinning reels are called Twin Power, and they feature the infinity drive, which means that there's not a fish around that they can't stop. That's because the new heat sink drag means a hot wahoo or a screaming tuna, they can run as fast as they want, and they're never going to worry about heating up the drag. Even better, the new Twin Powers are built to become the best reels ever at fighting saltwater intrusion. Listen, everybody's heard or experienced the problems with seeing the latest and greatest actually appearing on the shelves of your local tackle shop. Well, I'm here to tell you that Shimano's partnership with Strike Zone means that you can always count on finding the latest and greatest lining the shelves of both Strike Zone locations. Our thanks to William Toney for a great report. I tell you what, I know somebody that's ready for June to get started. That would be Captain Kevin Lanier. How we doing, Cap?
Hey, Captain Rick, we're doing just great. And I tell you what, I'm about worn out thinking about June 1st, and I ain't got there yet.
I know it. Yeah, I hate to be this way, but I do kind of think it'd be funny if you went to your favorite, best spot to start the season off and didn't get a bite. I mean, for some reason, that would cause me some sick satisfaction. But I know that's not going to happen.
Well, the funny thing about it is it really is hard to decide where to start because, a lot of these places haven't been touched, since December. I mean, really fished. So it's going to be interesting. And I do my normal thing. I'll think about it when I wake up in the morning and I get ready to get to the boat. When I come out of the pass, I go, here's where we're going. That's how I normally do it.
I work on a few different theories, Kevin. One of them is if I don't know where to go, I go into the wind. Because I want it to push me home, okay?
Right.
If it picks up, I want to push me home. But the other thing is when we've had a long closed season like this, my first spot will be what I think the most people have. I'll try and get there and get my fish and not go to my key spots until I have to.
Right. But, I'm with you.
But over here, our season, as you know, has been cut to 2 days this year. So all that's out the window. I'm going to my very best spot with big baits first. Let everybody reel up one fish, and we're out of there. Our record is Our record is an 8-minute snapper season, and I hope that happens again this year. Tell me how your fishing's been.
Hey, fishing's been good. We've had some good weather, been able to get out. My wife and a friend of hers went out with Captain George in St. Joe Bay this past weekend, did really well catching redfish and trout. They had a blast. We've had a few offshore trips, lots of trippers, lots and lots of red snapper, if I can add more lots in there. But I mean, it's really been good. We've got some really nice keeper gags close in, but unfortunately we have to let them go because, it's not open yet. So we got a few more days and then we're going to be able to keep some of those fish.
It won't be long. You'll survive it. It's almost here, Cap.
I know, and you'll talk to me 2 weeks after we're there and go, good Lord, how many more days we got to go? Because I'm tired.
I know what you mean. Kevin, if it's okay, we'll talk with you next week. I can't wait for your report.
Well, next week we'll have lots of red snapper to talk about, Captain Rick, and I look forward to talking to you.
Maybe I'll be at your house for dinner. Thank you, Cap.
All right.
Appreciate it. Our thanks to Captain Kevin Lanier for a great Northwest Florida report. That puts a wrap on our trip around the state tonight, and gosh, we learned a lot of interesting things. First off, seems like most people are pretty happy with their fishing, but awfully worried about it getting this warm this soon. Trout are really, that's the number one fish that's been knocked off their game by this blast of hot weather that we've had in what looks like it's going to be a very long, hot summer. Conversely, tarpon are showing up earlier than they usually do in different places, and we're seeing more snook in northeast and northwest Florida than we have ever seen before. It seems to get better every year. I know I enjoyed the heck out of checking in with the boys tonight. I hope you did too. Florida Sportsman Action Spotter is brought to you each and every week by Yamaha. Reliability starts here by Shimano. Bringing people and nature together by Tournament Master Chum. It's the best chum on earth, all right, by Nosara Paradise Rentals. Your dream billfish destination by D.O.A. Lures, the unfair advantage. By Young Boats. You want the finest in flat spay and offshore hybrids, you need to check out youngboats.com. By the Castaway Hat Co, the hat that's helping save our seas. And by our brand new sponsor, we're so glad to welcome Academy Sports and Outdoors. Right stuff, low price, every day. For Florida Sportsman Magazine, I'm Captain Rick Riles, and until next week, we'll see you on the rip.